Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again I'm coming to you with another range report. And in today's range report, we're going to be taking a look at a rare variant of an already rare and expensive pistol. In fact, I have never seen one of these in person or handled one until I got this one in for review. And the pistol that we will be taking to the range, shooting and reviewing is the HK P7K3. Now, I think it's really important that before we talk about this pistol, we talk about this pistol. This is the HK P7. This is a gun that was introduced in 1976 alongside the SIG P6 and the Walther P5, and all three of those pistols were designed for police contracts in Germany. This one, however, is mechanically very interesting. We have a squeeze cocker here on the front strap. The firearm will not fire unless your grip is squeezing this and it's pulling the striker back. And it also utilizes a gas-delayed blowback system. There is a little piston in here, and they siphon off gas from the chamber, and the slide cannot reciprocate or come out of battery until the gas pressure is at a safe level. So this doesn't use the standard locking mechanisms that you would find on many other pistols. And because of this, the barrel is set in the frame, and a lot of people think this is a very accurate and reliable gun. Now, the K3 is a little bit different. It looks the same. It is a little bit smaller. It is a little bit shorter. But as the name K3 implies, this can be converted to 3 calibers: .380, .32 ACP, and .22 long rifle. And depending on which caliber this is set up to fire, you may or may not have a hydraulic buffer in the frame, but this uses straight blowback, but it still utilizes the squeeze cocking mechanism. This is a gun that was designed for the civilian market and was inspired by an earlier gun by HK called the HK4, which could be converted to 4 calibers. And so, as I said, this is a very rare variant of this gun, especially here in the United States. So I'm really excited to get my hands on one to actually find out how it shoots. And there's so much to talk about, and in fact, I even have a caliber conversion for this gun. Right now it's set up for .380, but we can also shoot .22 long rifle through it, and we're going to do both at the range. But before we get this to the range and I show you how this gun works, as always, I want to thank the people that make these videos possible. First and foremost is the owner of this very awesome pistol. He's a local fan and subscriber named Jack. In fact, he's the second person named Jack that has lent guns to the channel, so I call him Jack number 2. Yeah, I know, it's a funny name. I also want to thank my Patreon supporters, because through their monthly donations and support, they help keep the lights on around here, and I could not do this without their support. And if you want to join my Patreon for as little as $1 a month, you get to see all these videos early. And as always, I want to thank my primary sponsor, who provides all of the ammunition for these range reports and makes them financially feasible for me, my good friend Mark from Brownworks. And here we are once again reviewing a really cool and rare firearm, one that can take panel grips. And most likely, if you're interested in guns like this, you have very similar guns like Colt 1911s, Beretta 92s, CZ75s, or Browning High Powers, just to name a few. And you might be in the market to upgrade these pistols with a set of custom grips. Well, the company you need to check out is Brownworks. Brownworks is a custom grip company making a wide variety of grips for a wide variety of firearms out of a wide variety of exotic woods and materials. Mark is an artist and a craftsman. He can apply custom logos, custom engravings, custom textures, finish these grips in a wide variety of colors. He can create his own laminate woods and even apply exotic materials like snakeskin and alligator skin to make these grips unique and one of a kind. Anything you can imagine, he can make, and every set of grips is made to order. So I'm going to put a link to his website in the comment section below, as well as a coupon code for 10% off your first order. So please go over there, see everything he has to offer, and when you place your order for your first set of custom grips, please tell Mark the Texas Gun Vault sent you. All right, so let's talk more about the pistol we have on the table today. And I think the best way to do that is to adjust the camera. Let's compare these two pistols, talk about how they work. I'll show you how you can convert the calibers. I'll tell you all about the specs of this gun, then the things I like and don't like, and then we'll get it to the range. So let me adjust the camera and let me show you some close-ups of this really cool pistol. So let's first talk about the specs of this pistol. The HK P7K3 has a 3.8-inch barrel. Its overall length is 6.3 inches. It is 1.1 inches wide. It has a height of 4.9 inches, and it weighs anywhere between 26 to 27.3 ounces depending on the caliber it is set up to shoot. Now, as I mentioned, this gun is set up with a squeeze cocker, and the way this works is you have to have your hand firmly on the front strap and you have to depress that squeeze cocker, and you'll notice the striker comes out the rear, and that's how you know when the firearm is ready to be operated. And so when you release this, it takes pressure off the striker and nothing will happen. It's a very ingenious design, but the manual of arms takes a little bit of getting used to. In fact, there are even stories of police officers having these taken from them, and the perpetrators are unable to use them because they don't know to squeeze this front strap. They just tried to pull the trigger and they did not go off. So that's kind of an interesting story and a very interesting safety mechanism. Now, as I mentioned, this gun uses direct blowback with a hydraulic buffer if you're using 380 or 32 ACP. But I think before we take this one apart, we should take the original P7 apart, which is chambered in 9mm, to show you that delayed blowback system that this pistol has. So I'll go ahead and I will drop the magazine. You will notice this is a European one, so it has a heel release. And of course, I will safety check the gun, ensure there is no ammunition in it. And then to take this apart, you pull the slide back a little bit and push this button. And then the slide comes up and off. There is the receiver with the barrel, and then here is the slide, and you can see it has a little piston right here, and that goes into a hole below the chamber where gas is siphoned off. And that's one of the very interesting aspects of this pistol. Now, as I mentioned, the K3 does something completely different. So if we take this gun apart, you'll notice it has a more traditional US style mag release. It still is a lever that you push down, but it's in a more traditional place. We can drop the magazine, and of course we will safety check this one as well. It looks like we are good. It comes apart exactly the same way. And so there is our frame. There's our recoil spring. And you'll notice, this being a 380 slide, it does not have that little piston. However, this slide, when it reciprocates, will come up against a little hydraulic buffer, which is right there. In fact, this is one of the major wear points of this design. And you're not really supposed to shoot this gun too much, especially if you're a collector, or unless you're able to get spare parts. Now, HK does not make these hydraulic buffers anymore, but there are a few aftermarket companies that do, so people say you really should have a couple of those on hand, but unfortunately, those are about $250 a piece as I'm filming this video. So that little part can be really expensive, but the more modern ones are supposed to be more durable. These original HK ones are not supposed to last too long. Now, something I was very curious about when I got this gun in for review was this recoil spring. This is a pretty stout recoil spring, and as I mentioned, you can convert this gun to other calibers, and I have one of those conversions right here. This is the kit to change this gun over to .22 long rifle, but it did not come with a different recoil spring, and I was very curious if this gun would operate with this spring. I couldn't find any information on a .22 long rifle spring for this gun, so I am assuming we use the same spring. But now I want to show you how you can convert this gun from 380 to .22. The first thing you're going to need to do is have the HK spanner wrench for this particular pistol. And the barrel is held in by a castle nut. And so all you have to do is put on that barrel wrench and gently take off that nut, just loosen it up. You should be able to get it off with just your finger. Pull that off, and that's also a really hard to find and rare piece. Once that is off, you can push the barrel through the frame, take that out, and now we're going to get the .22 long rifle barrel, which has a floating chamber in it, and we can insert it into the frame. And you have to make sure that floating chamber is lined up. So let me adjust it and put it back in. There we go. And then sometimes it just takes a little bit of finagling, and it's in. So then all you have to do now is put that castle nut back onto the frame, take your spanner wrench and tighten that down, and you don't want to go too tight on it. So now the next thing you're going to want to do is grab the slide, and every caliber has a different slide to it. I believe they're weighted a little bit different, and there's something to note that's different about this caliber than the 380. You'll notice here on the front of the slide there is a little cutout, and if I go to the 381, it is not there. This part of the slide will engage that hydraulic buffer. So when you are in .22 long rifle, it bypasses that hydraulic buffer. So these pistols will run a lot more and a longer time on .22 long rifle without having to change any parts out. But I think the .22 calibers are the more common variant of this particular gun. The rarest are the .32 ACP, and it would have been really sweet if I was able to shoot this in all three calibers. But then we're going to take our recoil spring from the 380, put it back over that barrel. Then we're going to take our .22 long rifle slide, put it onto the pistol, push that button down, and now we can grab one of the magazines for a .22 long rifle, insert it into the frame, and now this gun is converted from 380 to .22. So of course that makes this gun very, very versatile. So I did want to show you that and talk about how this gun works. And so the next thing I want to do is test this gun's trigger. So I'm going to get out the Lyman trigger pull weight gauge, and we're going to see what this trigger is all about, and I'll show you how it functions. And for measuring this trigger, I went ahead and converted this pistol back to 380 because I wanted it to be center fire and not rim fire. So let me go ahead and pull the slide back, and I want to show you one thing before I show you the gun is safe and drop the magazine. If you have the slide back, and of course, as you can see, the chamber is empty and there is nothing in the magazine, you have no slide stop on this frame. So the only way you can close this gun is to use the squeeze cocker. When I depress this, the slide will close. Of course, the other option is if you did have a round in the magazine or the magazine was out, the slide would not lock open, and all you have to do is just pull it back a little bit and it would close. But as you can see, I've already dropped the magazine. There's no ammunition in it. And of course, once again, I will safety check the gun, and it looks like we are good. So in order for me to show you this trigger, I do have to depress that front strap. And now let's take a look at the trigger pull. We have just a little bit of take up, and it comes back to kind of a mushy wall, and it's a very crisp break. Then the reset, kind of medium long, and it's not very tactile or audible, but it is there. And then you don't have much take up to get back to the wall. So now let me go ahead and get out the Lyman trigger pull weight gauge. Let me clear the averages, and let's see how heavy this trigger is. And so I have to keep that squeeze cocker depressed. And for our first pull, we have 3 pounds, 5.8 ounces. £3 pounds, 0.9 ounces. And maybe I can just release the squeeze cocker and pull it back. And yes, I can. That makes things a little bit easier. 3 pounds, 3.4 ounces. Three pounds, 2.5 ounces. And finally, we have 3 pounds, 6.4 ounces, which gives us an average of 3 pounds, 3.8 ounces. So it is a pretty darn light trigger pull, but it is a little bit on the mushy side. So I'm not sure how that's going to translate to the shooting experience. But before we get this to the range and find out, I want to readjust the camera, and I want to tell you all the things about this gun that I like and don't like. And so now let's talk about the things that I like and don't like, and I always want to start with the positive first. And the first thing I love about this gun is how it is so mechanically different and interesting. I already showed you here on the workbench the differences about this gun, even between these two variants. And then of course, if you're familiar with semi-automatic handguns, how different this gun is. I love innovation, and sometimes that can be good and sometimes that can be bad, but I love it when companies think outside the box. I also love this squeeze cocker. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but the biggest advantage of it is you simply have to pull that back and the slide will close. I think that is a really quick way of doing it. And obviously, I'm a huge fan of the caliber conversions. How awesome is that to have one gun that you can go between multiple calibers with very easy, especially ones that are in the subcategory, like 380, 32, and 22 long rifle. That is really innovative and really cool. And also, this gun feels very high quality. Of course it is, it's an HK, but often you don't get guns that are chambered in these calibers that really feel like real guns. So now let's talk about the two things about this gun that I don't like. The first one I've already mentioned, and that is going to be the difficulty of finding parts. This gun is already very expensive, it's discontinued, and if anything breaks on it, you're going to have to pay a lot to find a replacement part, especially that hydraulic buffer. Everyone says it is the weak point in the system, but if you only chamber this in 22 long rifle, that will not be an issue. And the other thing about it I don't like is the capacity, and I understand this is a single stack pistol. The original P7 is only 8 rounds, and in 380 this is only in 8 rounds, but also in 22 long rifle it's only in 8 rounds, and they could probably fit quite a few more rounds in that magazine, but they chose not to, so every caliber is the same. You might like that, you might not, but those are my only two complaints. All right, so now it's time to get this thing to the range and see how it shoots. And I'm going to start off with 22 long rifle, so I'll do all of my usual tests in that caliber, then I'll convert it to 380 and see if anything changes. And the first thing I want to know is, will this recoil spring work with 22 long rifle? I find it is really odd to have the same spring for 380 and 22. I don't think that's going to work, but we're going to find out. So let's go to the range. Let's put the first magazine through this in 22 long rifle, see how it shoots, and get my first impressions. And I have to be very honest with you, I am very, very surprised. It's pretty darn cool you use the same recoil spring for all calibers. I really didn't feel like it would be able to cycle. That spring is so stout and that slide was so heavy. But with 22, it works. Something really interesting about this, though, is 22 kind of recoils like 380 in this gun. It feels heavier and hefty, and I kind of like it. It doesn't feel like a toy. And as you also saw, it was pretty darn accurate. I didn't know what to expect with a gun of this size, but so far, I am loving this. It feels awesome, and it's so much fun to shoot. All right, so let's go back to the range. Let's double the distance on this target and see if this group continues. Hopefully, it will continue to be accurate. And everyone says these guns are accurate because the barrel is fit into the frame. It doesn't move at all. So let's go back to the range and get the next test's results. And the group did open up just a little bit, but I think for practical range accuracy with a gun of this size, it's perfectly fine, and I can tell you the sights are right on. And getting used to this squeeze cocker is a little bit awkward if you're not used to it. Sometimes you want to not have so much pressure on the grip, but you really do. Often I'll tell people when they're holding their pistols, especially if they can control them well, you don't have to have a death squeeze on them. But on this one, you kind of do, because you got to have that squeeze cocker all the way back to make sure that striker is engaged. It's just something you have to get used to because it's so different than every other pistol. All right, so the next test I'm going to do is take the target out to 25 yards, shoot this pistol from the bench, and hopefully I'll get a pretty darn good group. So far, the accuracy is surprising me, and I'm liking it. So let's go back to the range and see how I do at this distance. And I am very impressed with these results. This is a small pistol. I would put it between the size of a compact and a subcompact pistol, but it feels very balanced in my hand. And even with my big fat fingers, I'm able to get all three fingers on that front strap. But the accuracy is dead on for me. I'm very impressed with that. And this is just running iron sights the way they came out of the box. So I'm not going to complain about the accuracy of this gun at all. All right, so the next test I want to do is run some hollow points through it. Now, 22 is not the best self-defense caliber, but you might have this gun and want to carry it or use it for home defense. And if that's the case, you're probably going to want to use the best hollow point 22 ammo you can get your hands on. And sometimes these direct blowback guns have a hard time feeding hollow points. So let's go back to the range, put a couple of magazines of hollow points through it, and just make sure it runs. And as expected, we have no issues and it feeds perfectly. So far this gun is running 100%. All right, so the last test I want to do in 22 caliber is my 3-in-1 test. I want to, number one, see how fast I can shoot this gun. Because the manual of arms is kind of awkward, I don't know if I'll be able to. I also want to know, can I drop these magazines and get a fresh one in there and get the gun back in action? I got to remember to use this squeeze cocker to close the slide, so that's going to be a little bit odd. And I also want to know, is this gun point shootable? And the reason I test for this, as I always say, is in a self-defense scenario, you might not be able to unholster your gun, get those sights on target, line them up, take your time. Nope, you might just be able to pull that gun, point, and shoot, and hopefully you're going to hit your target. And in that case, is this gun a naturally pointing firearm? Is it point shootable? So let's go back to the range and test these three things out. And as expected, because this gun is kind of awkward, I didn't shoot it as fast, but I think it was fast enough, especially for self-defense. The magazine change was quick. These magazines fly right out of here, and that's another reason why I like the magazine release to be here on the side instead of the heel release like you find on the European versions. And also this gun is point shootable. I was expecting that because the gun has been so accurate to this point. So I think this gun in 22 long rifle passed all of my tests with flying colors. All right, so I know a lot of you want to know, how is this gun going to perform in 380? So let me convert the barrel, change out the magazine, and let's do all of these tests again in a more formidable caliber. And pretty much I have exactly the same things to say as I did when I shot this in 22 for the first magazines. The only exception is this is soft recoiling for a 380. Where 22 felt a little bit harder, this feels lighter, and it could be because of the use of that hydraulic buffer. So both calibers kind of feel the same, and that is not a result that I was expecting. But you can also see the accuracy of this gun is also spot on. So regardless if you convert the calibers, the accuracy is going to remain the same, and I think the recoil impulse is going to be the same. That is pretty darn cool and very interesting. All right, so as always, the next test is to double the distance of this target, see if this accuracy continues, and hopefully I'll be able to shoot it a little bit better than I did with 22. 380 is a little bit better of a caliber. But let's go back to the range, double distance of this target, and find out. And here the group opened up more than it did on 22 long rifle. I seem to shoot this pistol really well at about 7 yards, and even at 25 yards when I was shooting 22 through it off the bench. But at about 15 yards, man, the group opens up. I still think it is practical or good duty accuracy, and I'm sure if I practice with this gun more, I could tighten that up. But there really is kind of a big difference between 7 and 15 yards. But now I want to test this at 25 yards, and maybe like when I was shooting this in 22, I'll once again get a good group, especially if I take as much of the human element out of the equation as possible. So let's go back to the range, set the target out at 25 yards, and see how 380 does in the P7K3. And like when this gun was chambered in 22, it shoots really good. At 25 yards, I can tell you the accuracy of this pistol is awesome. And I'm really surprised because you're changing the caliber out, but everything seems to stay in alignment. That is impressive. That's that German engineering that everybody loves and talks about. All right, so the next test I'm going to do, of course, is the hollow point test. I want to see are 380 hollow points going to feed in this, and it doesn't change the function of the gun at all. So let's go back to the range, put a couple of magazines of 380 hollow points, and just make sure it continues to run. And once again, like the 22 conversion, this gun runs like a top. In fact, regardless of which caliber I have shot, I have not had a single malfunction. That is pretty darn impressive. All right, so the last test I want to do once again is the 3-in-1 test. You guys know what I'm looking for. Can I shoot the gun fast, change the magazine out quickly, and is the gun point shootable? I'm assuming this is going to be pretty much the same as the 22 conversion because I'm not really changing anything except for the caliber. But I want to test it anyway because I love shooting this gun. So let's go back to the range and shoot this gun one more time. And pretty much I got the same results and would have the same comments as I did when I shot this in 22 long rifle. The only exception is the group here was a little bit tighter, and I think that's because 380 recoil is so soft in this gun because of that hydraulic buffer. And I can see why other companies like B&T use hydraulic buffers in their design. But unfortunately, as I said, people say that is the weak point of this design. So if you shot this gun a lot, you definitely want to have a replacement. So what are my final thoughts on the HK P7K3? Well, this thing checks so many boxes for me. It is mechanically interesting. It is historical. It is over-engineered. You can tell this is a high-quality gun. For the most part, it's pretty accurate for me. It's been reliable regardless of which caliber it has been in. And most importantly, it is so much fun to shoot. This has been an amazing range experience, and thank you, Jack, for lending this to the channel and allowing me to do this review on this awesome, beautiful, and great pistol. So on my star system, how would I rate the HK P7K3? Well, you guessed it. It's getting 5 out of 5 stars plus. This has just been an amazing experience, and most importantly, it's been so much fun. I absolutely love this gun, but I might be a little bit biased because I love HK and I love the P7. So let me know in the comments section below, what do you think of this variant of the P7? Does having a P7 in 380, 32, or 22 long rifle appeal to you? Or do you prefer the originals in 9mm? And what's your favorite variant of the P7? There's quite a few. Tell me in the comments section below. And as always, thanks for watching.